Last spring, I pulled close to 400 pounds of finished, crumbly, black compost out of a pile I started exactly 14 days earlier. It smelled like a forest floor after rain, and it cost me almost nothing to make. $1 of dry alfalfa pellets, a wheelbarrow of yard waste, and a pitchfork. For 30 years before that, I did it the way most folks still do. I built a slow heap behind the barn, turned it twice a year, and waited 8, 10, sometimes 12 months for compost that was halfway decent at best. I was working harder for worse soil. And the kicker is, the better method has been sitting in plain sight since before the United States existed. It just was not allowed to spread. What I uncovered when my Amish neighbor Eli walked me through his pile traces back to documented hot composting protocols studied at the University of California, Berkeley in the 1970s, refined from older European and Asian field methods that fed entire villages on poor soil. The reason most Americans have never heard of it is that 9 states have actually placed restrictions on the manure inputs and on-farm livestock byproducts that make the fastest version of this method possible. We will get into that. Today I am going to walk you through exactly how Eli builds a pile that hits 150 degrees Fahrenheit by day 3 and gives you finished black gold by day 14. And stay with me to the end, because I will share the one ingredient Eli adds in the final turn that doubles the microbial life in your soil and makes seedlings explode out of it. Most folks have never heard of it. Now, I want to be straight with you. I spent the better part of 2 decades doing this completely wrong. I built piles too small. I tossed kitchen scraps on whatever grass clippings I had handy and called it a recipe. I turned it when I remembered, which was almost never. If that sounds like you are not alone. You are not lazy. You were never taught the method that actually works on a homestead scale. The one that produces enough finished compost to feed a half acre of vegetables every single season. Then Eli, who has been farming the same 18 acres in Pennsylvania for 40 some years, asked me to help him build a pile one Saturday morning. 2 weeks later, we forked it open and the inside looked like the bottom of a deep wood. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about compost reset. Here is what I learned from him. The Amish in his community did not invent this. They preserved it. The principle behind a 14-day pile is called thermophilic composting, which is just a fancy word for hot composting. It was studied formally by Sir Albert Howard in India in the 1920s, then again at Berkeley in the 1970s as the 18-day method. Howard documented Indian farmers who fed populations of hundreds with almost no outside inputs because they could regenerate exhausted soil in weeks instead of years. This was not romance. This was survival math. When you have to feed a family year-round off limited land, you cannot wait 9 months for compost. The Amish kept this knowledge alive in the United States because their economic model depends on it. The rest of us forgot. Now let me show you exactly how to build it. Here is what you need to understand before we start. The pile has to be the right size. This is non-negotiable. A hot pile needs a minimum of 4 feet wide, 4 feet deep, and 4 feet tall. Anything smaller will not hold the heat, and you are back to slow composting. Anything bigger than 5 by 5 by 5 and the center suffocates. So we are aiming for a cube about waist high. The reason size matters comes down to basic microbial biology. Thermophilic bacteria, the heat-loving microbes that do the real work, only activate when the core of the pile holds at least 130 degrees Fahrenheit. A small pile loses heat to the air faster than the bacteria can generate it. A 4 by 4 by 4 cube is the smallest mass that traps its own heat. Pick a spot on bare ground, not on concrete or plastic. Earthworms and soil bacteria need to migrate up into the pile from below. Full sun is fine, partial shade is fine, but stay out of low spots that pool water. Now, here is the recipe. This is where most people go wrong. You need a carbon to nitrogen ratio of about 30 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen by volume. In plain English, that is roughly 2 parts brown material to 1 part dark green material. Browns are dry leaves, straw, shredded cardboard, sawdust from untreated wood, and aged wood chips. Greens are fresh grass clippings, kitchen scraps, fresh manure from chickens, rabbits, cows, or horses, and coffee ground. Eli builds his pile in 8-inch layers. 8 inches of browns, 4 inches of greens, 8 inches of browns, 4 inches of greens, all the way up. Here is the conventional approach you have probably been told. Toss everything in as you generate it and stir it around. The method that fed Indian villages and Amish homesteads is layered, deliberate, and built in a single afternoon. The layering matters because the bacteria need air pockets between materials. A jumbled pile compacts and goes anaerobic, which is why your old heap smelled like ammonia. Now the third piece, the activator. This is the dollar in the title. You need a concentrated nitrogen source to spark the heat in the first 72 hours. Eli uses fresh chicken manure from his coop, but if you do not keep livestock, a 5-pound bag of alfalfa pellets from any feed store costs about $1 a pound and works just as well. Sprinkle 2 heavy handfuls of alfalfa pellets between every layer as you build. Cottonseed meal works too. Blood meal works. Even cornmeal in a pinch. This is also where the regulatory issue I mentioned comes in. 9 states, including parts of California, Oregon, and several in the Northeast, have placed restrictions on raw manure, composting, near waterways, and on the sale of unregulated manure-based amendments. Backyard use on your own property is fine almost everywhere, but this is part of why the fastest version of the method has not been widely promoted by extension offices. Now let me keep going. Before we get to the turning schedule, I want to pause for a moment. Now, what I have shared with you today is a real piece of the puzzle, but it is still just one piece. If you are tired of fighting the same battles every season, if you want a garden that actually works with you instead of against you, then I would really encourage you to check out the guide I put together. It is called the 30-Day Amish Self-Sufficient Garden Protocol. And it is everything I have learned from my Amish neighbors over the last 3 decades, organized into a simple day-by-day plan you can start this season. It covers the full 5 defense layers to build a garden that defends itself from the soil up. It has got the complete 4-bed crop rotation system that stops disease and pests before they ever get a foothold. And it includes the companion planting field guide, so you know exactly what to grow next to what and why. So click the link in the description right below this video. Just scroll down a little and you will see it. Or alternatively, if you are watching on a television or a computer screen, you can take out your phone, open up your camera like you are going to take a picture, and hold it up to the QR code you see on screen right now. A little link will pop up at the top of your phone screen. Just tap that, and it will bring you right to the guide. No typing, no searching. Either way works. I think it is the best investment you can make in your garden this year. Once your pile is built, you need water. The whole pile should feel like a wrung-out sponge. Squeeze a handful, and you should get 1 or 2 drops of water out of it. No more. Too dry, and the bacteria die. Too wet, and you drown them. If you use dry browns, plan to soak the pile thoroughly with a hose as you build, layer by layer. By day 3, stick your hand into the center of the pile. It should be uncomfortably hot. If you have a compost thermometer, and I recommend the long stem kind for about $20, you should see 130 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the sound of the thermophilic bacteria doing their job. Now, here is where the magic actually happens. The turning schedule. This is the part most folks skip, and it is the difference between 14 days and 14 months. You turn the pile on day 4, day 7, day 10, and day 13. 4 turns total. Each turn, you take the outside of the pile and move it to the center and the center to the outside. The reason is simple. The bacteria in the hot core run out of oxygen and food. Turning gives them fresh fuel, and the cooler outer material gets pulled into the heat zone where it can break down. Use a 5-tine pitchfork, not a shovel. A shovel will exhaust you in 15 minutes. A pitchfork takes about 20 to 25 minutes per turn for a 4x4 pile. Build the pile right next to an empty space so you have room to fork it sideways into a new heap. Watch what happens after each turn. Day 4, the pile will steam visibly when you open it. Day 7, you will start to see white fungal threads through the material. Day 10, the original ingredients become unrecognizable. Day 13, it looks like coffee ground. By day 14, you let it rest for 24 hours, then you screen it through a half-inch hardware cloth frame. What comes through the screen is finished compost. Dark, sweet-smelling, crumbly. What stays on top of the screen, the chunks that did not fully break down, you toss into your next pile as a starter. That material is loaded with active bacteria and will accelerate your next batch. For the homesteader feeding a family, here is what these numbers mean. A single 4 by 4 by 4 pile yield roughly 20 to 25 cubic feet of finished compost. That is enough to top dress about 400 square feet of garden bed at a 1-inch depth. Run 2 piles in rotation through the growing season, and you can build deep, fertile soil across a 1/4 acre in a single year. For zone 3 through 5 gardeners in the colder northern states, you can run this method from late April through October. The pile will hold heat even in 40-degree air temperatures because the core generates its own warmth. For zone 6 and warmer, you can compost 10 to 11 months of the year. Now let me cover the patterns I see folks fall into. The first one is building piles in a wire bin or open frame that is smaller than 4 feet on every side. I did this for years. The pile never got hot, the breakdown took forever, and I blame myself instead of the geometry. Build it bigger, and the problem solves itself. The second pattern is wild ratio. Too many grass clippings, and the pile turns into a slimy, ammonia-smelling mess. Too many leaves, and nothing happens at all. 2 parts brown to 1 part green by volume. Eyeball it, do not stress it, but respect the ratio. The third pattern is forgetting the activator. Without that concentrated nitrogen spike in the first 3 days, the pile starts cold and stays cold. $1 of alfalfa pellets per layer is all it takes. And the fourth pattern is impatience with turning. Folks turn it once and walk away, or they turn it every day. 4 turns, evenly spaced on days 4, 7, 10, and 13. That is the rhythm. Why was this knowledge lost? Because slow compost benefits the bagged amendment industry. A homestead that makes its own black gold in 2 weeks is a homestead that does not buy soil. Now here is the bonus I promised you. The ingredient Eli adds on the final turn, day 13. Biochar. Specifically, finely crushed biochar made from hardwood, soaked in compost tea or diluted urine for 48 hours before adding. Eli mixes about 1 gallon of inoculated biochar into the pile at the day 13 turn. The biochar acts like a microbial hotel. Its honeycomb structure has more surface area than almost anything in nature, and once it is colonized by bacteria from the hot pile, it carries that life directly into your garden soil. This connects back to a method called terra preta, which roughly means dark earth, practiced by indigenous Amazonian populations over 2,000 years ago. Researchers found patches of soil in the Amazon basin that were still fertile centuries after the cultures that made them disappeared, all because of charcoal amended compost. When you add inoculated biochar to a finished hot pile, you are recreating that exact biology. Seedlings planted in soil amended with this stuff grow visibly faster within 10 days. I have watched it happen in my own beds. Everything I shared today is one section of the larger system in Homestead Hank's 30-day Amish garden protocol. Inside you will find the full hot composting blueprint with Eli's exact ratios, the soil revival sequence for exhausted ground, his natural pest defense calendar, the water-wise garden layout that cuts irrigation by 60%, and the year-round harvest planning that keeps a family fed through every season. It is $19.99. Scan the QR code on your screen right now or click the link in the description and head to homesteadhankbooks.com. 40 years of learning from my Amish neighbors organized into one practical homestead guide. 2 weeks from today, you could be forking finished black gold out of a pile that cost you $1 to make. Go build your first one this weekend and come back and tell me in the comments what your day 3 temperature reading was. I read everyone. Now get out there and build some soil.